Nature's wealth, good for your health. This is the Raw Life Health Show.
Really, back in the day, you were really well off if you were a tree, because nothing could bother you. You got all the sunlight, you had all the time in the world to reach your full growth, and you lived out your life. Then along came the dinosaurs, and they started knocking down the trees to get to the leaves and on top. Suddenly, there was an advantage if you were a small plant beneath the notice of the dinosaurs that could grow really quickly and reproduce before you got trampled or cropped by some small plant or baby plant-eating dinosaurs. And then it was good to be a weed, and plants evolved flowers to reproduce much more quickly than the cones that the earlier trees had that might take 2 years for reproduction. Dandelion can reproduce in a few weeks, and there's other things that are just as fast. And then along came humans, and we knocked down a lot of forested areas, and we're taking the place of the dinosaurs and giving these weedy plants a place to grow. Since we evolved with them, we are adapted to eating this kind of stuff. Someone once did try eating what the chimpanzees ate in the forest, and he spent all his time chewing until he exhausted his mouth and was just barely able to survive. So we're adapted to things like open, sunny, disturbed areas, and we conveniently create the habitat for the kinds of foods that humans are most suited to eating. And those are the things we're looking for, and they protect themselves by quick regeneration. It takes a lot less time for wood sorrel to regenerate than an oak tree. So these things you pick, and we've been picking a lot of these in the same places for 28 years, and they just keep growing back, and the mowers come and mow them down as well, as people are obsessed with lawns. So that's what we're going to look at. And well, lawns are important. If you don't have a lawn, a bear could eat you. In the Middle Ages, after the fall of Rome, a lot of Western Europe reverted to forest. And if you came out of your house and there was a tree, that could be a bear behind the tree could eat you. So people started cutting down the trees, and they tried to let grass grow so they wouldn't be walking around in mud. Then they come out of the house and there's a clear area. They could see any four-legged or two-legged intruder from a distance. The richer people cleared the most land, had the most lawns, and the poor people wanted to look rich, so they started developing lawns. And then from the 20s to the 50s, the lawn care industry and the golf industry combined to brainwash the American public. They used to grow vegetables in their front yards. So think of how sloppy and awful that is to actually grow your own food yourself. It must be poor and low status. And that's what they try to convince the American public. And it took 30 years, and it worked. And ever since then, there have even been laws that you have to have a lawn where you live, and you can't do something ecologically friendly like growing vegetables. And because of all the chemical runoffs in the lawn, we've killed so many species that the ones that reproduce the fastest, like the white-footed mouse, are the ones that dominate the ecosystem, where there used to be weasels and foxes and some larger herbivores, lots of groundhogs and stuff. Anyone know what the white-footed mouse gives humans in return?
Leptospirosis.
Close. It gives us Lyme disease, because the deer tick is not infected with Lyme disease when it's born, but the Lyme disease is indigenous, something like that, is widespread throughout the whitefoot mouse population. So where Lyme disease was basically unheard of when I was a kid, it's now very common, because the ticks have very few things to bite, and if they bite the mouse, they get the Lyme disease, which they pass on to us. So this is a little bit of the ecological setting that we are in that most people don't know about. Ask questions about cooking. I love to cook. I do vegan cooking, some of which you'll sample during lunch, where I try to make delicious international cuisines that usually have animal products and refined ingredients in them, with alternatives that you can get from the health store, plus the wild ingredients that the restaurant chefs don't seem interested in. So there's a lot of potential that I've been exploring there. Ask about the medicinal uses, about the ecology, like what I just talked about. There are all kinds of connections people have found, the scientists have discovered between plants animals, people, and fungi. The silkworms eat white mulberry leaves. So in the 1800s, when most of America was agrarian, the people that sell trees and seeds, the seed catalog people, tried to sell American farmers on bringing white mulberries trees from Asia to America to start a silk industry. And Chinese labor was too cheap. The hot summers and cold winters we have here killed the silkworms, but the birds spread the seeds. So we have both, and we have hybrids. Okay, the mulberry is really important in history because of the silkworm connection. You had the Silk Road going from Asia to Europe, and a lot of ideas from fireworks to paper went back and forth down the Silk Road.
It's for your benefit, not for our benefit.
So,
This is my guess. A battery.
are we? I'm sorry. Are we in your way?
You're not in our way. We're just for your own safety. You need to stay away from this area. This is electrical.
Yeah,
There's
sure.
a battery. Somebody.
Okay, the mulberries are good, but not good enough to be electrocuted over.
Right.
Okay. Other things. Literature, love stories. The mulberry figures in the first love story ever written down. For thousands of years, people didn't read or write, and if you weren't a warrior or a farmer, you could travel from village to village with a homemade instrument and recite poetry and tell stories and present music, and that was the only entertainment people had, and which made storytellers really, really popular people. And the first one written down is Paramus and Thisbe. These two teenagers fell in love. They lived next door to each other. The parents didn't like each other. They weren't allowed to get married, and they whispered their love through a crack in the wall separating the two houses. They finally decided to take matters in their own hands and elope. They were going to meet under a mulberry tree as soon as their parents went to sleep in the middle of the night. At that time, all the mulberries were white, no red ones. And Thisbe got there first. And when she got to the mulberry tree, a huge lion sprang out of the woods. It was covered with blood and must have just eaten something. And she said, "Ah!" and ran off as fast as she could. The lion didn't chase her. It was full. Lions are smart enough not to kill if they're not hungry. But it found the cloak that she had dropped as she was running and tore it up and got it covered with blood. Then Paramus came by, and he saw the bloody cloak with the lion and figured his girlfriend had been devoured, and it was his fault for sending her into danger. He stuck his sword into the ground and jumped on it and killed himself just as his girlfriend came back, saw what happened, and decided she'd rather join her lover in death. And so much blood spurted out that the mulberries turned red, and they've been red ever since. And of course, that theme has been stolen by everyone from Shakespeare to Leonard Bernstein in different star-crossed lover themes. So between the silk and the Paramus and Thisbe, this is a really important tree.
Doggy.
Plus, it's delicious. Okay, let's go look for some other things.
Nature's wealth, good for your health. This is the rock.